The evening was calm, and the air carried a gentle breeze as Malik Johnson stepped out of his small apartment in Chicago. He had just finished a long day at work and wanted nothing more than to clear his mind with a quiet walk. His loyal dog, Max, trotted happily beside him, wagging his tail as they headed toward the nearby park. The sky above glowed orange and pink, painted beautifully by the setting sun. It was one of those moments that made life feel simple and peaceful. Malik loved these walks. They gave him time to think about everything, the challenges he faced at his job, the bills piling up, and even the dreams he'd put on hold. At 32 years old, Malik often felt like he was stuck between two worlds. The world of responsibility, where adult problems weighed heavily on his shoulders, and the world of hope, where he still believed things could get better. Tonight, though, something unusual interrupted his thoughts. As Malik strolled along the path lined with trees, he noticed people gathered near the center of the park. Some were pointing upward, their faces glowing with excitement, or maybe fear. Curious, Malik slowed down and followed their gaze. What he saw made his breath catch in his throat. Above them, the sky looked different. It wasn't cloudy or stormy. It was as if the very fabric of the heavens had split apart. A jagged line stretched across the horizon, glowing faintly like lightning trapped inside glass. Through this crack, enormous shapes began to emerge, massive structures unlike anything Malik had ever seen. They weren't airplanes or satellites. These were colossal ships, sleek and metallic, hovering silently in the atmosphere. Each one seemed larger than a skyscraper, casting shadows over the city below. "Are those spaceships?" someone whispered behind Malik. Others murmured nervously, unsure whether to run or stay and watch. Phones clicked furiously as everyone tried to capture the moment on camera. But no matter how many pictures were taken, none of them could fully explain what was happening. Malik stood frozen, his heart pounding in his chest. Was this real? Could aliens really exist? And if they did, why were they here now? His mind raced with questions. Were they friendly? Did they come to help humanity, or to conquer it? For a few minutes, the crowd remained eerily silent, staring up at the spectacle above. Then, slowly, the panic set in. People started shouting, grabbing their kids, and rushing toward their cars. Parents called out for missing children, while others screamed into their phones, trying to reach loved ones. The once peaceful park turned chaotic in an instant, but Malik didn't move. He couldn't tear his eyes away from the ships. Something about them fascinated him. Maybe it was their sheer size or the way they floated so effortlessly, defying every law of physics he'd ever learned. Or maybe it was the strange symbols etched onto their surfaces, glowing faintly in colors he couldn't describe. Whatever it was, Malik felt drawn to them as if they held answers to questions he hadn't even asked yet. Max tugged at his leash, whining softly, but Malik barely noticed. Instead, he pulled out his phone and opened the news app. Already headlines were flooding in. Massive objects appear in Earth's orbit. Is this the end of humanity? Experts baffled by phenomenon. Videos showed similar scenes, unfolding all over the world, from New York to Tokyo, London to Sydney. Everyone was seeing the same thing. Despite the growing hysteria around him, Malik stayed rooted to the spot. He watched as one of the ships moved slightly, its surface shimmering like liquid metal. For a brief moment, he thought he saw lights flicker inside it almost like windows. Were there people or creatures inside? If so, what did they want? A loud bang snapped Malik out of his trance. Someone nearby had dropped their phone, shattering the screen. The sound jolted him back to reality. He realized he needed to get home before things got worse. Turning away reluctantly, Malik called Max closer and hurried back toward his apartment. On the way, the streets were already clogged with traffic. Cars honked loudly as drivers panicked, unsure whether to flee or stay put. Storefronts were crowded with people buying supplies, water, bottles, canned food, flashlights. It was as if everyone expected the worst. When Malik finally reached his building, he collapsed onto the couch, exhausted. Max curled up at his feet, sensing his owner's unease. Outside, the hum of distant sirens filled the air. Malik flipped through TV channels searching for updates, but reporters only repeated the same vague information. No one knew who or what was behind the ships. Governments around the world issued statements urging calm, but their words felt hollow against the enormity of what was happening. As night fell, Malik lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Sleep eluded him. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the ships hovering ominously in the sky. Who were they? Why had they come? And most importantly, what would happen next? Little did Malik know. His encounter with the mysterious starships was only the beginning. Over the next few days, his life would change in ways he never imagined. From finding a lost little girl to uncovering secrets that spanned galaxies, Malik's journey would take him far beyond the streets of Chicago and into the heart of a story that would alter the course of human history forever. For now, though, all Malik could do was wait. Wait and wonder what tomorrow would bring. The next morning, Malik woke up feeling groggy and restless. Sleep had been impossible after the events of the previous night. Every time he closed his eyes, images of the massive starships filled his mind. Were they here to observe? To invade? Or was this some kind of cosmic accident? He didn't have answers, and the uncertainty gnawed at him. After feeding Max and grabbing a quick breakfast, Malik decided to head to work. His job as a mechanic wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills, and right now sticking to his routine felt like the only way to keep himself grounded. As he walked through the streets, he noticed that life in Chicago hadn't returned to normal. People moved cautiously, glancing upward every few minutes as if expecting the ships to descend upon them at any moment. News vans were parked on nearly every corner, reporters shouting into microphones while cameras rolled behind them. It seemed like everyone was waiting for something, anything, to happen. Malik tried to focus on his tasks at the garage, but his thoughts kept drifting back to the sky. Around midday, his boss gave him an errand to run downtown. Relieved for the distraction, Malik grabbed his jacket and headed out. On the way, he passed by a narrow alley tucked between two tall buildings. Something caught his attention, a soft whimper coming from within. Curious, Malik slowed down and peered into the shadows. At first, he saw nothing but piles of trash bags and discarded boxes. Then he heard it again, the faint sound of crying. Following the noise, he stepped deeper into the alley until he spotted a small figure huddled against the wall. It was a little girl no older than 6, sitting alone amidst the filth. Her clothes were dirty, her face streaked with tears, and she clutched a worn-out stuffed bunny tightly against her chest. "Hey there," Malik said gently, kneeling down so he wouldn't startle her. "Are you okay?" The girl sniffled and shook her head, her wide eyes darting nervously around the alley. I can't find my daddy," she whispered, her voice trembling. Malik's heart sank. She looked so young, so vulnerable. He couldn't just leave her there. "What's your name?" he asked softly. "Lila," she replied, clutching her bunny even tighter. "Okay, Lila, do you know where your daddy is? Can you tell me what happened?" Lila hesitated, biting her lip. "He told me to wait here," she said finally, "but he hasn't come back." Malik frowned. How long had she been sitting there alone? Hours? Days? She didn't look injured, but she clearly hadn't eaten or slept properly either. Whatever the case, leaving her in the alley wasn't an option. "All right, Lila," Malik said firmly, but kindly. "Let's get you somewhere safe, okay? We'll figure out how to find your dad together." Reluctantly, Lila nodded. Malik held out his hand, and after a moment's hesitation, she took it. Her tiny fingers felt cold against his palm, and he realized she must have been outside all night. As they stepped out of the alley and into the sunlight, Malik noticed people staring at them. Some looked concerned, others seemed suspicious, but Malik ignored them. His priority was getting Lila help. They walked to the nearest police station, which wasn't far from the alley. Inside, officers bustled about, their radios crackling with updates about the ongoing chaos caused by the appearance of the starships. Malik approached the front desk and explained the situation to a young officer named Ramirez. "She says her dad left her in an alley last night," Malik said. "She doesn't know where he went or when he'll be back." Officer Ramirez nodded, sympathetically. We'll file a missing persons report and see if we can track him down. In the meantime, we'll make sure she's comfortable. As Ramirez led Lila to a quiet corner of the station, Malik stayed behind to answer more questions. He described everything: the alley, her appearance, the stuffed bunny. But something about Lila's story nagged at him. Why would a parent leave their child alone in such a dangerous place? And why hadn't anyone reported her missing yet? Hours passed, but there were no leads. No one matching Lila's description had been reported missing, and none of the officers recognized her father based on Malik's vague description. By evening, Malik found himself sitting beside Lila again, watching her pick at a sandwich someone had brought her. She still hadn't said much, but Malik could tell she was scared, and not just because she was lost. Lila, Malik said gently, leaning closer. Do you remember anything else about your dad? Anything that might help us find him? Lila stared at her bunny for a long moment before speaking. He told me to stay hidden, she murmured. He said bad things might happen if I didn't. Malik's frowned. Bad things like what? I don't know. Lila shrugged, avoiding his gaze. He just said I should trust him. Something about her tone sent a chill down Malik's spine. There was a maturity in her words that didn't match her age, as if she understood things beyond her years. He wanted to press further, but before he could, Officer Ramirez returned with disappointing news. We've checked all our databases, Ramirez said apologetically. No one has filed a report for a missing child matching Lila's description. Without more information, there's not much else we can do tonight. Malik sighed. He knew the system well enough to understand that without concrete leads, Lila's case would likely be shelved until new evidence surfaced. But leaving her in the care of social services felt wrong. She was too fragile, too scared. And Malik couldn't shake the feeling that her situation was more complicated than it appeared. Can I take her home with me for the night? Malik asked suddenly. Just until we figure out what's going on? Ramirez hesitated, then nodded. You seem trustworthy, Mr. Johnson. Just bring her back tomorrow if nothing changes. Grateful, Malik thanked the officer and turned to Lila. How about we go somewhere warm and safe for tonight? My place isn't fancy, but it's better than staying here. Lila looked up at him, her big brown eyes searching his face. After a moment, she nodded shyly. Okay, she whispered. Back at his apartment, Malik made sure Lila was comfortable. He gave her a blanket and let her sit on the couch while he heated up some soup. Max wagged his tail excitedly, sensing the newcomer, but Malik shooed him away, worried the dog might overwhelm her. As they ate dinner together, Malik tried to coax more information out of Lila. Do you live nearby? He asked casually. Or maybe in another part of the city? Lila shook her head. We don't live here, she said simply. Malik raised an eyebrow. Then where do you live? She hesitated, then mumbled something under her breath. What was that? Malik leaned closer. In the sky, Lila repeated, louder this time. Malik blinked, unsure if he'd heard correctly. The sky? Lila nodded earnestly. My daddy works up there, with the lights. Malik's stomach churned. Was she talking about the starships? Could her father really be connected to those mysterious vessels? It sounded absurd, but given the circumstances, he couldn't dismiss it outright. Tell me more about your dad, Malik urged carefully. What does he do? He watches, Lila said, holding her bunny close. He watches Earth. But he likes it here too. That's why we came. Malik's mind raced. If Lila was telling the truth, and he had no reason to doubt her, then her father wasn't just missing, he was hiding. And whatever secrets he carried, they were tied to the arrival of the starships. For the rest of the night, Malik sat quietly with Lila, letting her talk whenever she felt ready. Though her words were cryptic, one thing became clear. Finding her father wouldn't be easy. But Malik also knew he couldn't abandon her. Whether her dad was human or alien, Lila needed protection, and Malik was determined to provide it. As they settled down for the night, Malik couldn't help but wonder what tomorrow would bring. Would they find her father? Or would they uncover something even bigger? Something that could change the course of humanity forever? The morning sun filtered through the blinds of Malik's small apartment, casting golden streaks across the living room. Lila was curled up on the couch, still clutching her stuffed bunny like a lifeline. Malik sat in a chair nearby, his mind racing as he replayed their conversation from the night before. In the sky, she had said. Her father worked with the lights, those massive starships that now loomed above Earth. It sounded impossible, like something out of a science fiction movie. Yet looking at Lila's calm demeanor and the way she spoke with quiet certainty, Malik couldn't dismiss it as mere imagination. He knew he needed to dig deeper. If Lila's father really was connected to the starships, then finding him wasn't just about reuniting a child with her dad. It could mean uncovering answers to questions humanity had been asking for centuries. Were we truly alone in the universe? And if not, what did these visitors want? As Lila stirred awake, Malik decided to approach her carefully. He didn't want to scare her or make her feel interrogated, but he needed more clues. Over breakfast, he tried to keep things light, asking simple questions while mixing in ones that might reveal useful information. "Do you miss your daddy?" Malik asked, pouring milk into a bowl of cereal for her. Lila nodded, her big brown eyes clouding with sadness. "I want to go home," she whispered. Malik hesitated. "Where is home exactly?" She pointed upward toward the ceiling. "Up there, with the ships." Malik sighed inwardly. This was going to be harder than he thought. But then, as if sensing his frustration, Lila reached into the pocket of her bunny and pulled out a small object. It was round, no bigger than a marble, and glowed faintly with an otherworldly light. Malik stared at it, unsure what to say. "What's that?" he finally managed to ask. "It's a thing my daddy gave me," Lila explained. "It shows pictures." Curious, Malik held out his hand, and after a moment's hesitation, Lila placed the glowing orb into his palm. The moment his skin touched it, the orb lit up brighter, projecting holographic images onto the wall. Malik gasped as scenes unfolded before his eyes. Strange landscapes filled with towering crystalline structures, skies painted in hues he'd never seen, and creatures unlike anything on Earth. Some looked humanoid, others insect-like, and a few defied description entirely. Then, one image caught his attention, a man standing beside a younger version of Lila. The resemblance was unmistakable. The man had dark hair and sharp features, but his most striking trait was his eyes. They glowed faintly blue, radiating an almost ethereal energy. Malik turned to Lila, his heart pounding. "Is this your dad?" he asked softly. She nodded eagerly. "That's him. That's Daddy." Malik felt a mix of awe and dread wash over him. There was no denying it now. Lila's father wasn't human. Whatever he was, he belonged to those starships, and somehow he'd brought his daughter to Earth. But why? And why leave her behind? Determined to find answers, Malik spent the rest of the day studying the holographic projections. Each time he touched the orb, new images appeared, some showing advanced technology, others depicting peaceful interactions between different species. One sequence showed Lila's father working alongside what looked like scientists, examining charts and data. Another depicted him walking through a bustling alien marketplace, smiling warmly at passers-by. Despite his otherworldly appearance, he seemed kind and deeply devoted to his daughter. By evening, Malik had pieced together enough to form a theory. Lila's father, whoever he was, likely served as some kind of diplomat or observer aboard the starships. Perhaps his mission involved studying humanity or protecting it, but something must have gone wrong. Maybe tensions among the aliens had forced him into hiding, leaving Lila behind for her own safety. As Malik mulled over these possibilities, Lila tugged at his sleeve. "Can we go find Daddy now?" she asked hopefully. "I'm trying, sweetheart," Malik replied, ruffling her hair. "But I need to figure out where he is first." Lila frowned but didn't argue. Instead, she handed him the orb again. This time, when Malik touched it, a map-like projection appeared, displaying coordinates that resembled Earth's geography, but not quite. Certain landmarks were highlighted, including one near Lake Michigan, close to Chicago. Malik's pulse quickened. Could this be where Lila's father was hiding? It made sense he wouldn't stray too far from his daughter, especially if he intended to come back for her. Gathering his courage, Malik decided they needed to investigate. Early the next morning, Malik packed a bag with essentials, water bottles, snacks, a flashlight, and his phone, and set off with Lila toward the location indicated on the map. They took public transportation to avoid drawing attention, but Malik couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Every so often, he glanced around nervously, half expecting someone, or something, to follow them. When they arrived, at the outskirts of the city, the scenery changed dramatically. Gone were the towering skyscrapers and bustling streets. Instead, they found themselves surrounded by abandoned warehouses and overgrown fields. The air smelled damp, and the only sounds came from distant birds and rustling leaves. Following the map's directions, Malik led Lila to a decrepit building partially hidden by trees. Its windows were shattered, and graffiti covered its walls, but something about it felt off. "This is it," Malik muttered, staring at the structure. "Are you sure your daddy would be here?" Lila nodded confidently. "Yes, he told me to wait near water. This place has water." Sure enough, Malik spotted a narrow stream running along the edge of the property. Taking a deep breath, he stepped inside, holding Lila's hand tightly. The interior was dim and eerily silent, save for the occasional creak of old wood. As they moved deeper into the warehouse, Malik noticed strange symbols etched into the walls, symbols that matched those on the starships. Suddenly, the air shimmered, and a low hum filled the space. Startled, Malik pushed Lila behind him instinctively. Before he could react further, a portal-like rift opened in front of them, glowing faintly blue. Out stepped a tall figure clad in sleek armor, his glowing blue eyes locking onto Lila instantly. "Lila!" the man exclaimed, rushing forward to embrace her. His voice carried a melodic tone, unfamiliar yet soothing. Malik froze, his mind struggling to process what he was seeing. The man, Kyle, as Lila later introduced him, was undeniably alien, yet his expression was filled with relief and love. After a long moment, Kyle turned to Malik, bowing slightly in gratitude. "You protected my daughter," Kyle said, his words translated somehow into English. "For that, I am eternally grateful." Malik blinked, still stunned. I didn't know what else to do," he stammered. "She needed help." Kyle nodded, his gaze softening. "You are brave, Malik Johnson. Few humans would risk themselves for someone like us." "Us?" Malik echoed, his voice barely above a whisper. "What are you?" Kyle hesitated, then gestured for Malik to sit. Over the next hour, he explained everything. He and his people had been observing Earth for decades, studying humanity's progress and potential. However, factions within their fleet disagreed on how to interact with humans. Some believed in peaceful coexistence, while others saw Earth as a resource to exploit. Tensions had escalated recently, forcing Kale into hiding to protect both himself and Lila. "But why bring her here?" Malik asked. "Wouldn't it have been safer to keep her with you?" Kale shook his head. "Her presence aboard our ship would have put her in greater danger. Here, among humans, she blends in." He paused, his glowing eyes meeting Malik's. "And now, thanks to you, she is safe." Malik sat quietly, absorbing the weight of Kale's words. He had stumbled into something far greater than himself, a conflict spanning galaxies and involving countless lives. But even amidst the chaos, one thing was clear. Lila and her father trusted him, and he couldn't turn away. Before leaving, Kale offered Malik a choice. "You have done more for us than I can repay," he said solemnly. "If you wish, return to your life. We will ensure you are left in peace. Or, if you desire, join us aboard our ship. You could serve as a bridge between our peoples, a voice of reason during uncertain times. Malik hesitated, torn between the familiarity of his old life and the unknown promise of something extraordinary. Finally, he looked at Lila, who smiled up at him with unwavering trust. In that moment, he realized his decision wasn't just about him, it was about doing what was right. "I'll come with you," Malik said firmly. "If it means helping prevent a war, then I have to try." Kyle nodded approvingly. "Very well. Prepare yourself, Malik. The journey ahead will test you in ways you cannot imagine." As they stepped through the shimmering rift together, Malik felt a surge of excitement mixed with fear. He didn't know what awaited him aboard the starship. But one thing was certain: his life would never be the same again. Stepping through the shimmering rift felt like walking into a dream, or perhaps a nightmare. Malik's senses were overwhelmed as the world around him shifted and transformed. One moment, he was standing in the cold, damp warehouse. The next, he found himself aboard what could only be described as a floating city in space. The air smelled clean, almost sterile, but it carried a faint metallic tang that reminded him of electronics. The walls glowed softly with an inner light, pulsating gently, as if alive. Strange symbols floated in midair, shifting and rearranging, themselves like living code. Malik blinked rapidly, trying to adjust to the sudden change. His heart raced as he took in his surroundings. Everything was sleek and futuristic, smooth surfaces, glowing panels, and devices that hummed with energy. It was nothing like Earth, nothing at all. And yet, despite its alien nature, there was a strange beauty to it. He couldn't help but marvel at the sheer scale of the ship. It wasn't just a vessel, it was a civilization unto itself. Beside him, Lila clung to her father's hand, her wide eyes scanning the area with curiosity rather than fear. She seemed completely at ease, as if she belonged here. Kyle, on the other hand, moved with purpose, leading them down a long corridor lined with translucent doors that shimmered like liquid glass. Every so often they passed beings who looked nothing like humans. Some had elongated limbs and glowing eyes, while others resembled giant insects or jellyfish suspended in hovering pods. Despite their differences, none of them appeared hostile. In fact, many nodded respectfully as Kyle walked by, murmuring greetings in languages Malik couldn't understand. "This way," Kyle said, gesturing for Malik to follow. His voice remained calm, but Malik noticed the tension in his posture. Whatever awaited them, it clearly wasn't going to be easy. As they continued deeper into the ship, Malik struggled to wrap his mind around everything. Just hours ago, he'd been an ordinary mechanic living an ordinary life in Chicago. Now he was aboard an alien starship surrounded by creatures straight out of science fiction. How had this happened? More importantly, why had he been chosen for this role? Kale finally stopped in front of a large door that slid open automatically, revealing a circular chamber filled with holographic displays. At the center stood a massive table-like structure projecting images of planets, stars, and intricate diagrams. Around the table were several aliens, each engaged in quiet conversation. When Kyle entered, they turned to face him, their expressions ranging from curiosity to suspicion. "Council members," Kale began, bowing slightly. "This is Malik Johnson, the human I mentioned earlier, the one who protected my daughter." The council members exchanged glances, their glowing eyes flickering as they studied Malik intently. One of them, a tall figure with iridescent skin and multiple arms, stepped forward. "You bring a human aboard our ship during such turbulent times?" the being asked, its voice layered with multiple tones. "Explain yourself, Kale." Kale didn't flinch. Malik risked his safety to protect Lila when she was lost on Earth. Without his intervention, she might have fallen into the wrong hands, or worse, been discovered by those who seek to exploit her heritage. He paused, letting his words sink in. "I believe his presence can serve as a bridge between our peoples, fostering understanding where there is currently mistrust." The council members murmured among themselves, their voices blending into a low hum. Malik felt small under their collective gaze, like a specimen under a microscope. He wanted to speak up, to defend himself, but he didn't know what to say. What could he possibly offer these advanced beings? He was just a regular guy from Chicago, not some diplomat or scientist. Finally, another council member, a slender, bird-like creature with feathers that shimmered like oil slicks, spoke. "We are aware of humanity's potential," it said, tilting its head thoughtfully. "But we are also aware of its flaws. Can we trust one man to represent billions?" Malik swallowed hard, feeling the weight of their scrutiny. Before he could respond, Kale interjected. "Trust must begin somewhere," he said firmly. "And Malik has already proven himself capable of compassion and courage. Those are qualities worth building upon." The council members fell silent again, considering Kale's words. After what felt like an eternity, the iridescent-skinned leader nodded. "Very well," it said. "We will allow Malik to remain aboard temporarily, but he must prove his value quickly. Time is not on our side." Relief washed over Malik, though he knew this was only the beginning. As the council dismissed itself, Kyle led Malik and Lila to a quieter part of the ship, a residential area, where they could rest and regroup. Along the way, Kale explained more about the situation. "Our fleet is divided," he said gravely. "Some factions believe humanity poses a threat due to your species' history of violence and destruction. Others see potential allies in you, provided you can evolve beyond your current limitations. The decision rests with the council, and, ultimately, with me." Malik frowned. "Why does it rest with you?" Kyle hesitated before answering. "Because I am one of the primary observers assigned to Earth. My recommendations carry significant weight. If I vouch for humanity, many will listen. But if I recommend caution—" He trailed off, leaving the implication hanging in the air. Malik understood. The fate of humanity, whether they would be welcomed as equals or treated as inferiors, depended largely on how Kale presented his findings, and now somehow Malik had become part of that equation. Over the next few days, Malik immersed himself in learning about the ship and its inhabitants. Kale introduced him to various crew members, explaining their roles and responsibilities. There were engineers who maintained the ship's systems, biologists studying Earth's ecosystems, and even artists creating works inspired by human culture. Each interaction gave Malik a deeper appreciation for the diversity within the fleet, and for the complexity of their mission. He also spent time with Lila, who seemed happier than ever. On the ship she thrived, exploring corridors and playing games with other children whose parents worked aboard. Watching her laugh and run freely made Malik realize how much she'd missed having a sense of belonging. For the first time since meeting her, she truly seemed at home. But Malik's presence didn't go unnoticed. Many crew members were wary of him, whispering behind his back or avoiding eye contact altogether. Some viewed him as a liability, a wild card who could jeopardize their mission. Others saw him as a symbol of hope, a sign that cooperation between species was possible. Either way, Malik knew he had to earn their trust. One evening, as Malik wandered through the ship's observation deck, he found himself gazing out at Earth far below. From this distance, it looked peaceful. Blue oceans, swirling clouds, and continents bathed in sunlight. It was hard to imagine the chaos unfolding on its surface. Ships still hovered ominously in orbit, and governments scrambled to prepare for whatever came next. Yet seeing it from above reminded Malik of something important. Earth was fragile, yes, but also resilient. Humanity had survived wars, plagues, and natural disasters. They could survive this too, if given the chance. Lost in thought, Malik didn't notice Kale approach until the alien placed a hand on his shoulder. "You're thinking about your planet," Kale said softly. Malik nodded. "Yeah? About how much is at stake?" Kale sighed. "It's a heavy burden, I know. But remember, Malik, you're not alone in this. We're all fighting for something greater than ourselves." Malik looked at him, gratitude swelling in his chest. For the first time since stepping aboard the ship, he felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, he really could make a difference. By the end of the week, Malik had begun assisting Kale in preparing reports for the council. Using his knowledge of Earth's cultures and politics, he helped craft arguments highlighting humanity's capacity for growth and cooperation. He shared stories of kindness and innovation, emphasizing the good alongside the bad. Slowly but surely, he started winning over skeptics, one conversation at a time. Meanwhile, tensions aboard the ship continued to rise. News arrived of skirmishes between rival factions threatening to escalate into full-blown conflict. Malik realized that time was running out. If they couldn't unite the fleet soon, Earth might become collateral damage in a war it didn't even understand. Still, Malik refused to give up. With Lila by his side and Kale guiding him, he pushed forward, determined to build bridges where none existed before. Because deep down he believed in the possibility of peace, not just for Earth, but for everyone aboard the starship. Little did Malik know, his greatest challenge and his greatest triumph was yet to come. The days turned into weeks aboard the starship, and Malik found himself adapting to a life he could never have imagined. The sleek corridors, glowing panels, and alien faces that had once seemed so foreign now felt almost familiar. He spent his time learning about the ship's systems, attending meetings with Kale and the council, and helping bridge the gap between humanity and the fleet's diverse species. Each day brought new challenges, but also new opportunities to make a difference. Malik's role evolved from being a mere observer to becoming an active participant in shaping the future of relations between Earth and the starships. His insights into human behavior, culture, and history proved invaluable to Kale and the council. They listened intently as Malik shared stories of humanity's resilience, the way people came together after disasters, how societies grew stronger through cooperation, and how creativity and innovation drove progress. These narratives painted a picture of a flawed yet hopeful species, one capable of both destruction and redemption. But not everyone aboard the ship was convinced. Skeptics remained, questioning whether humans were ready for contact with advanced civilizations. Some argued that Earth's history of war, greed, and environmental destruction made it too unstable to trust. Others believed humanity's technological limitations rendered them irrelevant in the grand scheme of interstellar politics. Malik often found himself defending Earth against these criticisms, using logic, empathy, and even humor to win over doubters. One of Malik's most memorable moments came during a heated debate in the council chamber. A council member, a towering, reptilian creature with scales that shimmered like molten gold, challenged him directly. "Your kind has caused immense harm to your own planet," the being said, its voice deep and resonant. "Why should we believe you won't do the same to others?" Malik took a deep breath before responding. "You're right," he admitted. "Humans have made mistakes, terrible ones. But we've also learned from them. Look at our efforts to heal the environment, to end conflicts, to build communities based on mutual respect. We're not perfect, but we're trying. And isn't that worth something?" The room fell silent as the council members exchanged glances. Finally, the reptilian counselor nodded slowly. "Perhaps," it said, "but actions speak louder than words. Show us proof of this change." That exchange marked a turning point. From then on, Malik worked tirelessly to gather evidence of humanity's potential. With Kale's help, he compiled data on renewable energy projects, global peace initiatives, and scientific advancements aimed at improving life on Earth. He even arranged live transmissions from Earth, showcasing ordinary people working toward a better future. Slowly but surely, the tide began to shift. More council members started, viewing humanity not as a threat but as a partner in progress. Meanwhile, Lila thrived aboard the ship. She became a symbol of unity, effortlessly blending her dual heritage, half human, half alien. Her presence reminded everyone of the possibilities that lay ahead if two vastly different worlds could coexist peacefully. Malik watched with pride as she formed friendships with children from various species, teaching them games she'd learned on Earth while picking up their customs in return. Kyle often expressed his gratitude to Malik, not just for protecting Lila, but for giving him hope. "You've shown me that humanity's greatest strength is its ability to adapt and grow," Kyle told Malik one evening, as they stood on the observation deck, gazing at Earth below. "If we can foster that spirit of collaboration, there's no limit to what we can achieve." Malik smiled, feeling a sense of accomplishment he'd never known before. For years, he'd felt stuck, unsure of his purpose. Now he realized that his journey, from finding Lila in that alley to standing aboard a starship, had been leading him here, to this moment. He wasn't just representing Earth, he was helping shape its destiny. Back on Earth, rumors swirled about Malik's disappearance. News outlets speculated endlessly, running headlines like "Chicago Man vanishes after alien encounter" and "Did Malik Johnson join the starships?" His friends and family worried, unsure whether he was alive or dead. But despite the uncertainty, Malik's legacy endured. The reports he'd helped compile reached Earth's leaders, sparking discussions about humanity's place in the cosmos. Governments began preparing for peaceful contact, drafting agreements and protocols to ensure cooperation rather than conflict. On board the starship, Malik faced one final challenge: addressing the entire fleet. The council had called for an assembly, inviting representatives from every faction to hear his message. As Malik stepped onto the platform, his heart raced. Thousands of eyes, some glowing, some mechanical, some completely alien, stared back at him. He cleared his throat and began. "I know I'm not one of you," he started, his voice steady despite his nerves. "I don't belong here, but neither do I belong solely on Earth anymore. In a way, I stand between two worlds, and because of that I see things differently." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Humanity isn't perfect. We've made mistakes. We still do. But we're learning. Every day, we strive to be better, to care for each other, for our planet, and for the universe beyond. And I believe that's something worth supporting." Malik went on to describe the beauty of Earth, the warmth of human connection, and the boundless potential of a united galaxy. By the time he finished, the room erupted in applause. Not cheers exactly, but a collective acknowledgement of respect. Even the skeptics nodded approvingly, their doubts softened by Malik's sincerity. Afterward, Kale approached him, smiling broadly. "You've done it," he said. "The Council has agreed to establish formal relations with Earth. It won't be easy, but it's a start." Relief washed over Malik, followed by a profound sense of fulfillment. He had succeeded, not just for himself, but for billions of people who would never know his name. Humanity had been given a second chance, and he had played a part in making it happen. As the weeks passed, Malik settled into his new life aboard the starship. He continued working alongside Kale, traveling to other planets, and meeting new species. Through holographic transmissions, he stayed connected to Earth, watching as humanity embraced its role in the cosmos. Schools taught lessons about interstellar diplomacy, artists drew inspiration from alien cultures, and scientists collaborated on groundbreaking projects with their extraterrestrial counterparts. Yet Malik never forgot where he came from. He carried memories of Chicago, the streets he walked, the garage where he worked, and the people who shaped him. Those roots grounded him, reminding him of the importance of staying true to oneself, no matter how far one traveled. One evening, as Malik sat with Lila on the observation deck, gazing at Earth's distant glow, she looked up at him and asked, "Do you miss home?" Malik thought for a moment before answering. "Sometimes," he admitted. "But home isn't just a place, Lila. It's the people you care about, and the things you believe in. Right now, my home is here, with you, your dad, and everyone else working to make the galaxy a better place." Lila smiled, leaning her head against his shoulder. "I'm glad you're here," she said softly. "So am I," Malik replied, his gaze fixed on the stars, and for the first time in his life, Malik truly believed it.